If you didn't think it was possible, another twist in Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Colin Powell breaking his silence on the matter, saying she's trying to make him the fall guy. Now, as you may recall, Clinton has thrown around Powell's name quite a bit in defense of her use of a private email server.
Secretary Powell has admitted he did exactly the same thing. He had such a distinguished record. You know, I have served my country as well. We both did the same thing.
Now we know Colin Powell had a private email account.
Just recently, Colin Powell's emails were retroactively classified from more than 10 years ago.
Right.
As he said, that was an absurdity. I could not agree more.
Okay, so there's that. And then she even reportedly told the FBI that he was the one who suggested that she use a private account in the first place. But Powell is now saying that is not true. At an event this weekend, Powell was quoted saying, "Clinton's people have been trying to pin it on me. The truth is she was using the private email server for a year before I sent her a memo telling her what I did." This, of course, raises new questions as to whether Clinton lied to the FBI about who advised her to set up the server in the first place. Greg, I have a feeling that Powell was like, stop trying to, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes.
This has been going on for a year, though, and he just sort of said that sort of as an aside at an event over the weekend.
It makes sense that she's putting this all on a guy named Colin because she's so full of crap.
Oh, my God.
But you know what he reminds me of? You know when you're in line at the checkout and there's a fight at the checkout line and the person is like looks at you for backup and you're like, I'm out of this. Stay out of it. Do not pin it on me. And the fact is, you never pin a good thing on someone. So even Colin knows that this is a bad thing, and that it's like I'm not getting the blame for this. This is on you, lady. And why do you have to keep bringing me up? It's not fair. But the big story about this is it was broken. This story was broken by People magazine. This wasn't the New York Times or the Washington Post. That means that the new Woodward and Bernstein were writing about Kardashian's behind all this time. And they
just happened to get a scoop.
They got a scoop.
In the Hamptons.
Well, you know, the cool kids have a name for this. They say, keep my name out of your mouth, right? And I feel like this is Colin Powell essentially telling Hillary Clinton, keep my name out of your mouth. Also, a huge distinction here, and Hillary Clinton actually said it. Colin Powell had a private email account, right? She had private email servers operating from her home. That is very, very different. And furthermore, the whole he did it too argument, for me, that's like the opposite of leadership. So I think, you know, to the extent that there were some similarities at all, that's just a lame cop-out by Hillary.
She was trying, Eric, to basically use him as a shield.
Yeah. She's trying to do everything. Advice to Mrs. Clinton, stop with the emails. Forget it. Just start eating it. Don't start blaming other people. You hear what we found out today? The FBI found 15,000 additional, not the 30,000 that they scrubbed already, 15,000 additional emails that she never admitted to having. And now, as we're working through these, I have some of the ideas here. I know we're going to get to it in a bit, but wow, this is
baby pictures.
This is unbelievable. So yeah, no baby pictures, and so far no yoga plans or wedding plans.
Kimberly, when it comes to what she told the FBI and what now we are hearing what Colin Powell said, can they reopen this? Or Comey look back and say, maybe I was wrong?
Whoever came up with this, pinned the tail on Colin Powell. It was ill-advising Hillary Clinton, because now they might have just set themselves up for the greatest, slam dunk perjury case of all time. Because for him to come out, and he's very loath to criticize, the Clintons, he always is more reserved about things. He's saying, okay, it's enough already for me. Actually. And it is distinguishable what Secretary Powell did at the time versus Secretary Clinton, because he used a commercial email address to discuss personal matters with family and friends and did not put State Department business on a personal or commercial email address. He complied in terms of the information that was relayed to protect national security. And what you've seen here is Hillary Clinton making a mockery of national security. And, it's all about yoga mats and downward dog. But you know what? People that know the truth and the difference about what matters and take our national security seriously don't find her funny.
Plus, there is a huge difference, Greg, between email use in 2002 and then when she became Secretary of State in 2009. I mean, we didn't even have BlackBerries in the administration until well after 9/11. So I think that she's also trying to hide behind a former Secretary of State who's usually very diplomatic.
Yeah, no, it's a sign of. It's basically saying, well, when you remember your mom used to say, just because Billy says jump off a bridge doesn't mean you have to. This is what she's doing. She's saying, well, he did it first. He did it first. It is the most primitive.
But it's also dishonest.
Yes.
He used the State Department email for all conducted State Department business.
And he didn't delete them on the way out the door.
No, this is so night and day different. And you know what? She's ruining his reputation, or trying to, doing her level best to, being reckless, being a loose relationship with the truth, and they should take the matter back up.
Right, and he's 79 years old saying enough of that. There's also more to come on the Hillary Clinton email story, because one of the things that people were looking at was the Clinton Global Initiative. There was news on that over the weekend, and Donald Trump called on them to stop it.
Number one, they should shut it down. Number two, they should give the money back to a lot of countries that we shouldn't be taking and they shouldn't be taking money from. Countries that influenced her totally. And also countries that discriminate against women and gays and everybody else. I mean, that money should be it should be given back. They should not take that money.
Also today, Eric, Bill Clinton saying that he will step down if she becomes president, but at this point, I guess the foundation did what it was supposed to do,
and not
right?
only that, here's what they're signaling. They're saying, hurry up and get your donation in before November for influence. If you want influence, get it in now and watch the donations come pouring in before this potentially event where he can no longer be bought.
Be a part of it,
right? All right, so quid pro quo, very quickly, some of the 15,000 emails. We found out the Crown Prince of Bahrain wanted a meeting with the Secretary of State. He was told you'll have to wait. He dropped $26 million into the Clinton Foundation, gets the meeting with the Secretary of State. There was a British footballer who got in trouble for doing something in England, wanted to meet with Secretary of State. Also, a donation helped make that happen, or at least open the door to where eventually they got to work some things out with the State Department. We already knew about the $145 million that went into the Clinton Foundation. That was just after Secretary of State Hillary Clinton okayed a deal to sell 20 to 25% of U.S. uranium production to the Russians. Think about some of these. These are textbook business school quid pro quos. I mean, you can't get even worse. Until James Rosen today asked the question at the State Department. Did you hear that question? There was an email, one of these 15,000 emails, an email going from Clinton Foundation operative, I can't remember who it was, to Mills. Cheryl Mills. And the email says, hey, can you ask our boss if she can do this? Meaning Clinton Foundation, Hillary Clinton boss, State Department, Hillary Clinton boss. She can't have both of those titles. She can't. Well, and that exposes them to quid pro quo.
Her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, tried to answer some of these questions yesterday.
Tried. We have Republicans in Congress and right-wing groups doing everything they can to try to make something out of nothing here. The fact is that at every juncture, the foundation has gone above and beyond what is usually in place in terms of ethics and rules for a foundation like this. When President Bush, the second President Bush, came into office, you never heard people asking questions about his family's foundation, which was a very similar situation, and members of his family remained on the board of their foundation while he was president. So what we're just asking for is for people to take a fair look at this situation.
Well, and taking a fair look, Greg, I mean, Laura Bush, the former First Lady, was not then serving as the Secretary of State.
How do we know that? I don't think there's any records of that.
There are no records of that.
They were actually thrown out. Look, my question is, where does this go from here? Because I don't think the media is doing quite the job they're supposed to in this arena of looking at the Clinton Foundation or the Clinton Global Initiative, which is CGI, which is interesting because it's special effects to alter reality. The only way this is going to come apart is at the debate, because Trump will have to force her to answer the questions that the media doesn't. Because so far in this game of whack-a-mole, the mole hasn't shown up. You can't hit the mole because it's never there. But on the debate, the mole is going to have to come up, and then there'll be Trump with the little mallet.
The mole is trapped on the stage.
Former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, and a supporter of Trump's, Kimberly, basically said the Clinton Global Initiative, he used the word bribery, that's what it's been. Do you think that will factor into any FBI consideration, or is that just water under the bridge?
Well, he's saying that not only as former mayor, but as a former prosecutor who's investigated and prosecuted racketeering and RICO violations. And he's saying what we saw here, this level of corruption is so overt that it rises to the same level and would warrant a very thorough and fair investigation and potentially indictment. So he's been
under RICO.
That's what I just said. That's what he's saying. So he thinks that there is definitely a case to be made for it. But you don't see them climbing over themselves to try and even properly investigate it. And if it were, anybody else, but the Clintons, BTC, they'd be
There is
fried
further
already.
information, Ebony, that basically the Justice Department, having seen all this information, heard from the FBI repeatedly, has said, look, there's nothing to see here at the Clinton Global Initiative. We've checked into it, everything's fine, and they just let it go.
Yeah, and so to break it down too, Dana, like the Clinton administration, the Clinton Foundation, rather, they've done great work, you know, and I think that's important to note. But KG, you know about this legal doctrine that we all learn in law school, fruit of the poisonous tree. Yeah. And that's really big here because for people that don't really understand the big deal.
What is the fruit of the poisonous tree?
So that's
don't
like,
eat it.
Don't eat it. When the content goes through corruption, even if it's doing good work or goodwill or is valuable, it's corrupt, it's tainted, and therefore it can't be used in the same way.
So even if you built a bunch of clean water wells in Africa,
and
it doesn't matter.
Research and drugs and meds and all that good stuff that the Clinton Foundation has done, the method in which you got those resources is so foul and so corrupt and so just horrible that we have to take that into consideration. I think that's a good...
Courts would exclude it.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, it's like the drug kingpin opening up a playground for the kids over there. It's a similar example. But also, Charity Navigator, that's a website that issues, you know, it scores different charities. In 2015, they backed out. They said, we can't even attempt to rate Clinton Foundation anymore because there's no transparency. They don't even understand the tentacles.
I think we did that story.
Yeah, well,
but we never knew it was going to get to be this big.
Yeah, and I have a hunch as you continue with these emails, you'll find out there'll be more and more of the lack of transparency that gives Charity Navigator headaches.
All right, we're going to move on, but before we go, I just want to tell you this. So the Judicial Watch has been filing all these lawsuits that are bringing all this information to light. The judge said that the Clintons have until October 14th they must submit its questions to Clinton by October 14th. So Judicial Watch sends questions to Clinton by October 14th. And the judge says she has, guess what?
2 weeks?
30 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
30 days in which to answer, which would put it beyond the general election.
Unbelievable.
There we go.